Hey YouTube, Dawson Ryder here. Welcome to my second bonus episode in my Team Up Rewind review series. This time we are going to be talking about the infamous Shellshocked, the very first Power Rangers TMNT crossover that took place in Power Rangers in Space. Before we get started though, I just want to remind you to like this video if you enjoyed it and subscribe and ring that bell to get more content like this and more. So, let's talk about this episode, obviously. So I feel like this is, like I mentioned, a kind of infamous episode. It's one of those episodes that, spoiler alert, it's not that good. I would even say it's kind of bad in some ways, but I think the word I would use to describe it is harmless. Like, it's not that great, but it's not awful, but it's one of those things that the fandom's like, I can't believe this movie hates children. It's like, that's what it feels like. It's kind of like Super Mega Force. I feel like this and that are so just generic and like little effort, just kind of there. But the fandom acts like it's the biggest crime against the universe ever. And it's not that bad. I just want to say that at the beginning. Like, I don't really hate this episode. I find it to be harmless, but it's just not that good, and it's kind of strange when you think about it. In a lot of ways, especially since there was like a lead into it. And this was an episode that happened very early on in the series. This is only episode 4. And for whatever reason, ever since In Space came out, except for when it aired, I always thought of this episode as happening later. For whatever reason in my head, I always thought it was like a little bit before Zane showed up. But it's very early on in the series, which makes it kind of weird because you're still kind of getting used to the status quo. So you have Astronema taking the turtles and mind controlling them to use them to take over the Rangers' base. And that's one thing I'll say, until the very end when Astronema abandons this, there's all kinds of smart stuff in this episode in terms of the characters being smart. Like, this is episode 4 and Astronema already manages to get her hands on the command ship by, you know, doing this. And I guess taking another heroic team and using them to infiltrate is kind of smart. Infiltrate, because they're like, look, we got treats. We got candy, Rangers. That was kind of smart. It was just kind of weird, though, because then you have this bit where the turtles think the Power Rangers are comic characters and vice versa, and that just seems strange. I could see, like, presuming the turtles are in the PR universe, I could see the Rangers thinking that they're, you know, comic book characters are fake because the turtles are like in the shadows, maybe there's comics based off of them. But it just seems weirder in the other direction with the Rangers, mainly because of the big robot fights. Like, that seems, unless they think it's a hoax, because they're in New York and Angel Grove's the only one getting the robot fights and they think it's a hoax. I guess that's possible. It just seems kind of strange to me with the Power Rangers who are on the news all the time and destroy cities with the robots and whatnot. I don't remember if it was like that in the comic. In the TMNT Batman crossover, it was like that, but it made sense because both the turtles and Batman can be in the shadows. And a lot of the times in a lot of Batman stories, that's his whole shtick, as he's like this urban legend on the streets of this bat monster that takes him down, so it made more sense. But I just thought I'd highlight that, mainly because if they were doing a multiverse thing, it would be kind of cool and make sense if in the Turtles universe, Power Rangers were comics, and in the Power Rangers universe, Turtles were comics, but that would just be kind of an added element of confusion you wouldn't need. But I would probably, if I was doing this, have Astronema accidentally go through a wormhole and might be like, well, I'm here, I might as well pick up the turtles. But I don't know. That's just me literally rambling, but this is a review, not a ramble, but it's both are in the name. Turtles trick the Rangers into thinking that they're saving them, and as a result, they get invited on the ship very trustingly. And it does kind of work dynamic-wise because, like I said, this is early on, so the other 4 are all like buddy-buddy and ready to invite him, but Andros has been more of a loner, so he's naturally more suspicious of them, and this is kind of before the whole team unites. So that dynamic did kind of make sense, and I liked that. But they invite him back on the ship, and they soon reveal their treachery by taking over the ship and reprogramming Deca. And there's only, I think, 2 things that I really quite like about this episode in terms of crossover, and they're rather small, sort of superficial things. And one of them is, I don't know how people feel about this, but I liked Deca's reprogramming, like certified, turtified. I just thought that was a fun crossover thing, like Deca having that sort of speak, and it was kind of a fun element of mishmashing the 2 different styles of the 2 different franchises, and I always thought that was a fun little detail. So that was one of the few things I liked. But once the base gets taken over, the Rangers done get the F out of there. And that was another smart thing. Like, in the first half of the episode, I kind of appreciated how smart everyone was. Like, Astronema came up with a smart plan that actually got her the mega ship, and then the Rangers got out of there right away and they were safe. I thought that was smart. But basically, then the Turtles, they get unbrainwashed because they go through like a wormhole or a storm or something, which I thought was just kind of dumb and anticlimactic. I mean, I suppose any way you slice it, it would have been rather generic, whether it was, you know, the Turtles freeing themselves somehow or the Rangers freeing the Turtles, but it just seemed so like, oh, the Turtles took over the ship and they're evil, and then, oops, oh, never mind, we got bumped on the head, we're fine now, and I don't know. And then once Astronema finds out they're not brainwashed anymore, they just back off the ship. I'm like, why didn't you just re-brainwash them or kill them? They wouldn't have killed them because it's Power Rangers. But you know what I mean? It made no sense because she brainwashed them at the beginning. She's got the base. She's won. And then they're like, no, yo, cowabunga, we got the ship, whatever they said. And then she's like, oh crap, we better get out of here. I'm like, just re-brainwash him. Again, then there wouldn't be an episode. But logically that bothered me because like I said, rewatching this, I was actually kind of surprised with how smart some of the characters were for kind of a weird episode like this until that moment. That was stupid. But then basically they get the ship back and they all fight together at the end and we get our big team up fight and our big kumbaya moment. And then it leads to the only other moment I really like in this episode, or really like, well, tone it down, Dawson. Let's take about 20% off. Not really like, but just one of the crossover elements I liked is the turtles riding the galaxy gliders, just because it made sense. Like I said, this was early on in the series, so Andros was kind of showing the galaxy gliders to the other Rangers at the beginning, and knowing this is a Turtles crossover, that was the first thing I thought of, like, you know, the turtles will skate, you know, cowabunga, all that. It makes total sense for them to ride it. So, like, those are the only two crossover-y mesh elements I liked in this, was that and Deca. But other than that, it was just very run-of-the-mill. And, you know, I only casually watched The Next Mutation when I was younger. You know, I didn't watch it as much as something like Beetleborgs. I think I maybe only watched a handful of episodes here and there. So I don't remember that much from it, and I haven't really revisited it in a really long time. Maybe I should do a review on it, I don't know. But I didn't remember a lot about what the Turtles' personalities were like, and in this one I felt like all of them just meshed together into a turtle amalgam of like pizza and cowabunga and dudes. And most of the fun of the Turtles for me is their different personalities and how they play off of each other and their banter, and that is the same thing. And, you know, their banter with whatever characters are crossing over with. And I really felt that the 4 turtle personalities were lost in this, so I'm not sure if that's what it was like in The Next Mutation or not, again, because I don't remember that much, but I did look up after this that apparently, because of different filming locations, the voice actors and the suit actors for the crossover were different than the primary show, so that could have made a difference. I'm not a scientist, but I don't know why they had to have different voice actors. Maybe it was because it was the 90s, but like recently people were voice acting stuff from quarantine. So, I don't know. Maybe I forgot how antiquated stuff was in the 90s. I guess they couldn't get their horse and buggy over there to do the voice acting. I don't know. But the point is it was different than usual, unless that's untrue, but that could explain it, so maybe it is a little bit different. But I just felt like part of the fun of some of the Turtles crossovers I've enjoyed, like the Batman one or the PR comic, was the different personalities of the characters. And in the comic, you don't even have the voice acting, but it was clear, and I thought that was kind of lost. But this episode was just kind of average. Like, it was almost just like a filler episode of PR that could have been done without them being turtles and have just been a random fake friend or a fake monster friend or something, but it just happened to be the turtles. I'm not sure why they did it, what they were going for. I know with Masked Rider, as I mentioned in the last review in this series, they were kind of trying to attempt to create a universe, but then they wound up disconnecting it a little bit, so I'm not sure what they were going for here, and it's not that great, but I would just say it's generic and kind of harmless and not that awful. I know a lot of people hate it. I'm not mad at it, but I don't think it's that great, but it's just not as bad as people make it seem. I think it could have been better. I think there was a lot of potential here, potentially, but as is, it's just kind of generic with only a couple moments I like. So it's only really worth checking out. Well, if you're just watching all Power Rangers and you're going through in space, you probably should watch it because it's like the 4th episode, but it's only really worth checking out if you're curious or you want to see all the Turtle fan content. But if you really want to see a good Power Rangers Turtle crossover, I highly recommend this comic. This is not an ad. This sounded like a segue into like a Ridge Wallet ad. But I just wanted to highlight this in this review because I really like this a ton. This is the trade paperback that collects it all, and you can get that if you want a quick and easy way to read it. But since I was talking about this, I wanted to highlight this. In fact, I think I have a lost episode of the final issue review of this, and I should probably do a series review of it. But my point is, this was really good. Better than I expected. Like, I was only very mildly excited for this because I'm not a huge crossover guy, you know, especially comic ones, because you don't get the fun of the actors interplaying off of each other. But I was pleasantly surprised by how much I enjoyed this. The story was solid. There's some great character interactions. They do a great job of sort of mixing the two worlds together with some fun designs. That it is a little bit fan servicey, but it also feels natural. It doesn't feel unnatural. So this is really enjoyable. So if you are wanting to see something like this and you're really excited about a good Power Rangers Turtles crossover, this is definitely going to be your superior pick, and I feel like I couldn't make this review without mentioning this, so I thought I would bring that up. But what did you guys think of the original Turtles Power Rangers crossover? Let me know in the comments as always. Until next time, don't forget, like, comment, subscribe, and climb the steps and ring that bell to notification of my videos. Dawson Rider, signing out.